Goldsmith hit me twice while I was pitching.
Purposely?
No, I hope, well, if he did it purposely, he's pretty good.
Pretty good with the aim.
And then I said, that's it, I'm done pitching. I moved over to first base and he quickly hit me there.
So maybe he does have good aim.
He might. I said, are you kidding me? I had some other words.
Yeah.
Like, when is the game?
Something you don't
The
want to be
15th.
quoted up.
October?
Yes.
Oh,
It was a very handsome individual living, see that, section.
You bailed early, huh?
Yeah. My
I
kid,
wasn't at
Oh.
313.
I'm fine, yeah, yeah.
you wouldn't be at City Field either.
Yes, I would be.
No, you would, you.
I love City Field compared to Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
Was that
I think it's a great
the one's
stadium.
for flower bed, the other one's for a bench?
It is nice sitting. Yankee Stadium's very generic.
Yep, I would much, now, if you're
Yeah,
comparing
sorry.
City
I
Field
was
to
more
old
bushes.
Yankee Stadium.
It was
More
my
bushes,
son's
Yankee
idea,
Stadium.
so I stay active. I think I want to stay
You
active.
walk
But
through,
they
you
put a
just,
lot of work into it.
yeah,
I think when he made City Field.
yeah,
He implemented a lot of different things.
yeah, no, I enjoy going there.
Oh,
I like the Party City deck.
I turned around and won.
yeah, we left about halfway through the seventh inning. So. I got my bobblehead, that's all I was worried about.
I stayed to the bitter
I was in
end.
traffic on the cross Bronx and I was like, I gotta get my bobblehead.
I stayed to the bitter end. Which way did you go back home?
We threw two-way, over the TZ.
You went over, the Triborough?
Yeah.
How bad was the traffic
Not bad at all.
going into the Bronx? Because when I went through, they had it down in one lane there where the construction, it was a little slow going through there.
So I pull up underneath one of the boulevard,
Yankee fans from over here, we don't have that problem, we
in
just
the
hop on
top,
the train.
you know? He goes, all right, just go down New York Street down there. So there's a traffic agent there. She says the lot's full. He goes, you can park right here on the curb, on the sidewalk. I was like, you know what, man, I'm not gonna take a chance. I end up paying for parking.
I go in and where you turn and go into the main parking lot, underneath the underpass there, there's the two parking lots. I park there. You're out in no
I gotta
time
be
at all.
there at 7, so I
When we
can
get
go
out-
out about 6:45.
We get right on the we get right on the, Grand Central, right on the.
Yeah. You come out of the parking lot, you hang a right, and it takes you right out to the left, right to the Grand Central.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a walk, but it's easy.
It's a long walk to the back of the parking lot.
I know.
It's just, I think it's just as close. We used to
Yeah, it
get
was
there
a
early enough,
connection
we
to the
like
stove.
this weekend for that game. I got down there early, we had a couple sandwiches in the car. Popped the tailgate up, took the chairs out, had my tablet there, we watched the end of the football game.
My son insisted that we go, he loves ABC pizza. So, we went there before the
And I was just waiting to see what tickets come my way now. I paid for them, let's see.
We got sunset.
How are you?
Dave?
You put a tie on for me.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I have to give you,
Jason, how are you? Uh-oh,
I
Gene.
figured maybe if they should happen.
Sir,
Oh, yeah.
Ma'am.
live.
okay,
And
and I have to give you the,
It
I'll
might
write
be
it
the last chance you get to see him in your lifetime.
the color.
Thank you.
When was the last time they were in?
I don't know.
Is there documentation?
When was the last time they were in?
Oh, it's from.
Everybody, just let me remind you, the mics are live right now, so
from
we
the
are,
work session.
we're being live streamed, so any conversation out there gets picked up by these mics.
Sure, I'll give you the pages you need them.
Yeah, we had to open the meeting at 6:30, go into attorney-client, come out, and now I'll go ahead and open this meeting up.
No, we actually didn't do it.
Yeah, I know.
We did another one.
Okay. All right, can I get everybody to rise, face the flag for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, please be seated. I'm going to make a motion to open up the, let's see, what is it? The business meeting for the Village Board of Trustees in Cornwall and Hudson for September 19th, 2022. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. First order of business, and I want to apologize especially to you, Mr. Cashman, because normally I would have a suit on, but I brought the wrong suit that didn't match these pants. So the one I had hanging in my office was not the right one, so,
You look just fine.
well, thank you, sir. All right, so I asked Mr. Cashman to come tonight. I think the word ubiquitous around these parts would probably describe Mr. Cashman and his service to our community, his service to our country, his service to Orange County, his family, but really to all of our families. So I know he wouldn't have allowed me. I didn't want to tell him what this was about, but we are going to, on behalf of the Village Board, present you with a proclamation. And sir, I'm going to go ahead and read it, and this proclamation states, whereas 81 years, 10 months, and 4 days ago, young Kenneth Warren Cashman, a member of the Silent Generation, was born in New York City, New York, on West 74th Street on November 15th, 1940. A particular date in American history whereby for the first time ever, some 75,000 men were called up during peacetime to active U.S. military duty, and the Midtown Tunnel linking Manhattan to Queens was officially opened on that day. All this whilst in Cornwall and Hudson, New York, during the year of Mr. Cashman's birth, Village Mayor Irving C. Kent and the elected Board of Trustees presided over a whopping $64,000 annual budget. Including the water department, our budget is now $7 million. The village office was budgeted exactly $550 per year, and the police department chief, I hope you're keeping notes, operated annually on $2,500 only. But whereas Mr. Cashman and his wonderful wife Evelyn had 3 children who brought them great joy and filled them with immense pride, Bill, Elise, and Kevin, and as Mr. Cashman has been a resident of Monroe, New York since 1983 and is a well-known fixture in Monroe, where he served for many years as its Little League president and coordinated his community's 1999 bicentennial celebration while remaining an active member of St. Paul's Lutheran Church. And whereas Kenneth Warren Cashman's unwavering dedication to the village of Cornwall and Hudson, New York, and the greater Cornwall community is why we recognize him today. He has been a stalwart employee of the News of the Highlands Incorporated for the past 21 years and the editor of the Cornwall Local since 2008. It is here at the newspaper whereby Mr. Cashman connected so closely with our Cornwall community, seamlessly becoming part of the indelible fabric of what makes Cornwall unique. He is so Cornwall that he has spoken at our Lions Club. He's been recognized at Cornwall Central High School's graduation, lent his mellifluous stylings and dulcet tones to countless local events, been recognized by a New York State Assemblyman and an Orange County executive, continues to serve as the adjutant for the American Legion Post 353 here in Cornwall, and been honored just a couple of years ago as our 4th of July Independence Day Parade Grand Marshal, all while chronicling our kids' athletic exploits across decades. And now, therefore, be it resolved that by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the village of Cornwall and Hudson, and on behalf of this village board of trustees, and on the occasion of Mr. Cashman's 3rd retirement, I understand, first Prentice Hall Publishing, then it was just in quotation marks, the insurance industry, and now from the Cornwall Local. I do hereby proclaim today, Monday, September 19th, 2022, Kenneth Warren Cashman Day in the village of Cornwall and Hudson, New York, under my hand, James A. Galliano, Mayor. I'm going to present this to you. Before you say anything, because your people are going to want to hear from you. I want to give you a chance to sit down because I know the Board of Trustees, folks here have known you for a long time and want to say a few words too. Is that all right? All right. So I'll start with the deputy mayor, Mr. Kane.
Well, I can just say, look, I think it was all in the proclamation, but I have to say this, I've grown to know Ken over many years, both on the street, reading his articles, and Ken being an integral part of our Post 353 American Legion. And we already, I think to sum it up, the one word would be gentleman. And Ken's been a gentleman from the day I met him through what I see as every facet of his professional life and his personal life. And I appreciate the friendship, and I appreciate what you've done for this community. And hopefully you don't leave anytime soon, because it's always good to see you around. I truly appreciate it.
Trustee Carnwright?
Yeah, Ken's a special guy to me. I enjoy riding to the football games with him. He covered my kids in sports. I first met him when he was with Little League way back when, before he even came to Cornwall. I knew about him through Kurt Remfrey and some of the past presidents. So I knew about Monroe, and I knew Ken's name came up all the time. But I really appreciate all he did for the town and the village and our school district, my kids, and all the kids that he covered with his generous articles that always put Cornwall first. Thanks, Ken.
Trustee Brain?
Mr. Cashman always pursues the story. I can attest to this because when I had a novel that was published, Ken came, he called me up and said, "Oh, I'd love to talk to you about it." And I said, "Okay." And I honestly don't remember how this happened, but we ended up on the impoundment for the first reservoir up in Black Rock Forest, where the photograph that turned into the cover design for the novel was taken. And he came up there and climbed up on top of the dam with me, and we walked over, and he took a photo of me for the paper, which was a terrible photo because I wasn't prepared, because I didn't realize my hair looked terrible. But that was a testament to just, that he was game to go when we sort of ended up saying, "Why don't we drive up there?" And so that, in addition to the many times that, I'm always pleased to see positive coverage of community events, things, whether I had a part in them or not, and always a reliable voice for the community, as Dave said. And I was seasonally a reporter on my local weekly paper, and I know that it's a challenge to maintain that positive flow in a news medium, and I think you've done a commendable job. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. I'm gonna call an audible here, and I'll open it up. If anybody, we have a former mayor here. I know who worked closely with Mr. Cashman over many years too. So if anybody else in the audience would like to say a few words, feel free. Don't feel compelled to, but if there's something you'd like to say, sir.
Reading Point 13 Paul Court. So Ken and I have worked together on many occasions, and it's so nice that he's being honored yet again. He's been honored half a dozen times, it seems, upon his retirement. But when we nominated him and chose him as Grand Marshal, one of the things that he's well known for is the interaction with the athletes, and sort of Dave's kind of said that. And I would bet that if you ask 10 people in the village and the town where Ken lives, they would say, "Oh, he lives in Cornwall, not Monroe." But he has been such a part of this community for 20 plus years that everyone, or many people, think that he's been a resident of the village and the town, if not a native. Thank you very much for your work. You've done a great job for us.
Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else? Before I'd like to, yes, sir, Mr. Trainer.
Ken, I just want to thank you for covering all the stories for both of my kids, and I'll forever remember the transfer of power story from Ricky Douglas to Michael during one of the softball games between the village and the town. And thank you for covering the fire company as you did. You have a way of getting your point across in a very positive way. And thank you for keeping the local, community-minded paper while you were there. Thank you.
Anyone else? And with that, Mr. Cashman, I don't want to put you on the spot because you didn't know what you were coming here for tonight, but if you'd like to say anything, we'd certainly love to hear from you.
Listen to you, I kind of feel sorry that I retired. But actually, my very first assignment was in this room 21 years ago. I covered a joint meeting of the village and the town, and I never dreamed on that day that it would make such a change in my life and that I would meet so many people who meant so much to me. So this has been a great experience for me, and I thank you for this, and that's all I can say is thank you.
Well, we know you're not going away too far because I speak to the new editor all the time, Mrs. Pitt, and she said to me that you were still going to be part of the family there, and I noticed that the 9/11 coverage of the ceremony we had at Shedane Circle, you did some writing for that, and we expect to see some more. I'll close this by saying, and then we don't want you to stick around because you don't have to cover this, and this will be root canal with no Novocaine, so you can get out of here. But I just want to say this, very few people in this world, we're all complex humans, very few people in this world you can find no one to say a bad word about. You're one of them. You're one of them. So thank you, sir. You know you've always got a home here, and we hope to see you around more Cornwall events. All right?
Thank you very much.
You got it. All right. All right. That was the best part of the night. Now we get down to the work. So first off, public comment. Anybody that would like to speak to the board, they have 3 minutes to do so. Please state your name and your address. There will be time at the end of this meeting for public comment as well. There'll be 2 opportunities. Does anybody wish to address the board? Seeing none, I am going to move on to the minutes. I'd like to make a motion to accept the August 15th, 2022 business meeting minutes as presented. May I have a second?
Second?
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I'd also like to make a motion to accept the September 1st, 2022 special meeting minutes as presented. May I have a second?
Second?
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye.
I abstain, I wasn't there.
Gotcha.
You were there.
Okay. Oh, by the way, which brings me to this point.
I think only one guy was.
Yeah. Trustee Gaylord is away with family. That's why we only have 4 members of the board tonight, plus our intrepid village clerk. I'm just trying to remember. When I had that meeting, the special meeting, it was me, Rich, and Dave. So
Right.
you have to abstain, you have to abstain. Okay. I just want to make sure I had that right.
If they have to stay, we can't do the motion.
Can't do it, yeah.
We'll have to wait
Oh,
till the
there's only
next
2 of you.
meeting.
Oh, well, there you go. Parliamentary procedures rearing up to bite us in the butt. Okay, so we'll put this over till next month. All right. Treasurer's report. The open utility balances report for the end of August reads as follows. Village water, sewer, garbage, and penalties, $434,217.52. The town's water and penalties, $306,837.77. The revenue and expenditure reports by fund are general fund revenue, $3,798,526.50, with expenditures of $2,113,449.11. The water fund revenue stands at $1,389,107.43, with expenditures of $1,242,916.50. Sewer fund revenue stands at $351,563.47, with expenditures of $29,194.08. Total receipts totaling $5,539,197.40, or 70.5% in anticipated revenues, and $3,385,559.69, or 43.09% in anticipated expenditures through the month of August. The sewer capital fund balance stands at $556,301.38, including interest, through August 31st, and the amount collected in village taxes and penalties remains at $2,826,537.30 through August 31st. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the September 2022 warrant number 9 and authorize payment, including prepayments, totaling $512,617.41. May I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, moving on to the board department reports. Let's start with the building department. Trustee Carnwright.
Report for August 2022. Building permits issued 10. Certificate of compliance occupancy issued 23. On-site inspections 51. Note, 9 to 5, 28 inspections. 5 to 10, 23 inspections. Complaint inspections 4. Violations 0. Stop work orders 0. Municipal searches 5. Solar panels 1. Fire inspections 5. Town of Cornwall, I'm sure Manny's been covering, and that was 2. Manny Carmona, code enforcement officer.
Manny, anything to add to that report or add color to any piece of it?
We can add the Airbnb inspections, short-term rental, we did 6. We have to 6 that are being inspected and approved as of today.
But you said we had in the teens number of applications?
I was thinking 10.
Okay.
Right now, officially, we got 6 that are approved and permitted to be used as short-term rental.
Has the building department received any complaints regarding Airbnbs?
No complaints.
Okay. All right, because I know following in the town, there've been some complaints, and I just wanted to see if we had gotten
Get
anything.
them all.
Yeah. Okay, anything else to add to that?
No, sir.
Okay, I know we're gonna come back to you in a minute on some other stuff when we get down to resolutions and other business, so we'll let that stand. Fire Department, Deputy Mayor Kane.
So the August 2022 report, with respect to events, there was 1 brush fire, 4 automatic alarms, 2 hazardous conditions, 7 medical, 4 mutual aid, 1 carbon monoxide alarm, 6 drills, 2 fuel storage tank fire classes, 2 meetings, and 1 detail. So for a total events were 30, total volunteer hours, about 386. The department provided support to the annual New York Air Show at Orange County Airport, and the chief requested the village board declare surplus the old assistant chief command vehicle, a 2012 Ford Expedition, where Mike advised us last week that it has about 130,000 miles on it. It won't get out of second gear, from what I remember, Mike, is that correct? Yeah. Sometimes, right. And unsure of how much we would potentially get for surplusing it, and it's not being replaced. Is that right, Mike?
It was replaced already.
Well, okay, right. Okay, you're right. I stand corrected on that.
Which leaves us at, we have 3 command and control vehicles now. We surplus 1, that'll leave us at 2. 1 for the chief, 1 for the assistant chief.
Okay.
You want to go ahead and make the
Yeah,
motion?
sure. Okay, I'll make upon the recommendation of Fire Chief Mike Trainer, I'll make a motion to declare the 2012 Ford Expedition VIN number 1FMJU1G52CEF10417 surplus and authorize the village clerk to advertise it for sale. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Go for it.
Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye. All right, thank you, sir. That's it. Moving on to the police department. Trustee Brain.
This is the Cornwall and Hudson Police Department monthly report from August 1st to August 31st, 2022. There were 319 total calls for service. There was 1 call for felony criminal mischief. There were, under misdemeanors and violations, there were 2 petit larceny calls and 2 harassment or aggravated harassment calls. There were no arrests. Under vehicle and traffic incidents, there were 3 property damage accidents, 7 summonses issued, 7 warnings issued, 4 parking summonses issued, 6 traffic enforcement posts, and 2 speed or radar sign postings. Under non-criminal activity, there were 7 fire response calls, 5 domestic incidents, 7 alarm response calls, 1 suspicious person call, 2 suspicious vehicle calls, 1 suspicious activity call, and 12 animal complaints, and 1 disorderly adult call. In terms of department assists, they assisted the town of Cornwall PD 10 times, EMS 7, other agencies twice, other police agencies 2 times, performed 4 welfare checks, 1 citizen's assistance, and assisted the COH Water Department in 1 call. During the month of August 2022, COH PD officers participated in Orange County Stop DWI traffic enforcement grant funding. During the month of August 2022, the Cornwall and Hudson PD applied for grant funding from the NRA, the National Rifle Association, in the amount of approximately $1,800 for training ammunition for COH PD officers. The department requested formal resolution from the village board to transfer approximately $2,520 from the COH Village Contingency Line number A1990.4 to the COH Police Budget Line A3120.4 to cover costs accrued from the purchase of a radar and speed sign from Traffic Systems Incorporated on May 19th, 2022. Which I think we might do right after this.
Phil, why don't we just go ahead and do that right now
Yeah.
before you move on to the next one? Yep, I mean, you can go ahead and make the motion to do that. Just so everybody understands, we had one radar speed sign. One of the biggest complaints I get from people that'll stop in this, or they'll see me, they'll say, we only have one. Sometimes it's down by the school, sometimes we move it up here. The chief and Sergeant Pena tried to pick different places to try to thwart people that are speeding through here, that gives them the flashing what their speed is. So I asked them to get another one, so that we'll always have one down by the school, and then we can use the other one to be flexible, move it out to intersections, but be on some other stretch of basically our main drag here. So I asked the chief to do that, and that's what this is about. Bill, do you got the numbers you want to do make the motion on that?
I move that the village board transfers approximately $2,520 from the COH Village Contingency Line A1990.4 to the COH Police Budget Line A3120.4 to cover costs accrued from the purchase of a radar and speed sign from Traffic Systems Incorporated on May 19th, 2022. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Good move.
We might as well continue. We've
You
got
might as
3
well
more.
continue, yep.
The police department also requests a formal resolution from the village board to transfer approximately $4,023.75 from the COH Village Contingency Line A1990.4 to the COH Police Part-Time Police Officer Payroll Line A3120.140 to cover costs accrued from having a COH PD part-time police officer perform security at the 2022 COH Village Summer Camp. So that was Officer Thompson, who was there stationed for, what was the duration of that? It was
6 weeks.
6 weeks.
Before you go any further, and I'm gonna have you do the motion, another thing that was unplanned for and unbudgeted. So the reason we're doing this, moving this, is because I told the chief to give me the costs to do this, to have a police officer available 6 hours a day for the duration of, 5-day weeks during summer playground, and the chief figured out a way to make that happen. So that's what this cost is for. Next year, this will be in the chief's submitted budget to the village board. Sir?
Therefore, I move that the COH Village Board transfers approximately $4,023.75 from the COH Village Contingency Line A1990.4 to the COH Police Part-Time Police Officer Payroll Line A3120.140 to cover costs accrued from having a COH PD part-time police officer perform security at the 2022 COH Village Summer Camp. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, I think you just gotta amend the amount. You said $4,023, it's $4,025.
I'm going to suggest you increase to that because you can't transfer pennies from the one line to the other.
So, remove the 75.
So we'll just, I think $4,025.
As amended,
Yes.
$4,025.00. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The police department would also like to request a formal resolution to declare one 2014 Ford Interceptor SUV police patrol vehicle, VIN number 1FM5K8AR7EGC08639, with 77,736.1 miles on it, surplus, and authorize the COH village clerk, Gene Mahoney, to sell same. Do we want details on this vehicle before we?
Anything to add to that, chief?
No, just regular rotation I've been doing for the past 11 years, just to keep, costs down for maintenance and such.
Okay. Therefore, I will make a motion that we declare 2014 Ford Interceptor SUV police patrol vehicle with the VIN number, can I say as stated, or shall I read it out?
No,
As
you don't have to
previously
read it.
stated.
Yep.
With mileage of 77,736.1 miles, surplus, and authorize the village clerk, Gene Mahoney, to sell the vehicle. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. One more.
Yep. And the chief would ask that the village, he requests a formal resolution from the COH Village Board to accept the resignation of Police Officer Stephen Berrien from the Village of Cornwall on Hudson Police Department effective September 6th, 2022.
We don't need a formal resolution on that, do we, Gene? You're just gonna announce that we're doing it with regret.
The village board hereby accepts the resignation with regret of Police Officer Stephen Berrien from the Village of Cornwall on Hudson Police Department as of September 6th, 2022. That concludes both the associated motions and votes and the report. Respectfully, Chief Stephen E. Dixon.
Chief, anything to add, or are we good? We covered all?
I just want to just again recognize Steve Berrien. He was my first hire when I became chief here. As I used to say to my wife all the time, when I knew Steve was working, I never had anything to worry about. I knew he could handle it. I always had tremendous confidence in his abilities and experience.
Excellent. All right, thank you. And moving ahead to the Department of Public Works, Trustee Carnwright.
Okay, Village of Cornwall and Hudson Department of Public Works, August 2022. Trash collected for the month, 116.5 tons. Recycling collected for the month, 28.25 tons. Yard waste collected, 30 yards. Repairs and maintenance of village-owned vehicles and equipment continues. Blacktop patching continues. Maintenance of village-owned properties. Sweeping of streets. Front door of the village hall repaired and outside building pressure washed. Ran new IT lines to assist New Windsor IT, Village Hall, and DPW buildings. Replaced chain link fence along Idlewild Avenue, along the new sidewalk. Repaired catch basins, 218 in Homeland, Paula Court, Deer Hill Road, Church Street. Painted guardrail at Riverfront Park. Trimmed willow trees at Park for clearance to walk under and enhance the view. Notes. Fall bulk cleanup is set for October 17th. Paving of Taft Place, Bayview Avenue, and Briggs Road tentatively set for last week in September. Dave Halverson, Superintendent of Public Works.
Dave, anything to add?
Not that report.
All right, still nothing new yet from the state regarding 218's paving and when that's gonna happen, but we are sticking with, the last we heard was in the fall. So,
They didn't
Okay.
say what year, but they
Yeah.
said the fall.
yeah. So, I want to give a quick shout out to Dave because I've been saddling his department with just additional things as we rush to try to get as much infrastructure work done prior to that paving. So you'll notice that there's been some long overdue sidewalk replacements and repairs. Some areas we have a contractor shave it down to make sure there's no jagged edges that people trip on. Other places we contract out, but our guys still have to help with that to have sidewalks replaced. The state did a number of them along 218. We've also done some of them, including the one right across from Cornwall on the Hudson Elementary School, between that and Storm King Engine 2, to make that ADA compliant, and so that mothers that are pushing double strollers aren't going up over high curbs. Dave's guys done a great job with that, and we'll talk about out front later when we get to the beautification part of the, just so you know. But Dave, thank you. Moving on, next thing. Oh, and Dave, real quick, just so we make sure it's on record, we're doing paving. The villages, I know we've got Taft slated to do this fall. Who else? There were 3 places that
We're doing Taft, Bayview, and Briggs, and I'm gonna try to stretch out some other stuff, but I'd rather not put that right now.
I got you. All right. We're trying to do is triage things, so we're looking at the worst and trying to obviously work backward from that, get as much done as possible, so, okay. All right, moving on to the Water Department, Trustee Brain.
The Village of Cornwall on Hudson Water Department, August 2022 monthly report. Monthly production was 25,232,000 gallons, a daily average of 814,000 gallons. The department collected 36 samples in accordance with the approved water quality monitoring plan. As far as treatment, the south well is out of service and a replacement well pump ordered. Replacement variable frequency drives were ordered for both wells, and the repair of the Alec Meadow Reservoir PRV. Transmission and distribution, 56 utility markouts were completed. They completed a fire flow test at Storm King Golf Course, repaired water main breaks on Vinebrook Avenue, Mountain Road, and Murray Road, replaced a fire hydrant on Murray Road and on Gulfstream Drive, repaired water main valve at Hudson Street at Colonial Street, 146 Bayview Avenue, Academy Avenue at Hudson Street, and 309 Hudson Street. Repaired curb valve box at 24 2nd Street, 305 Mountain Road, 8 Homeland Avenue, and 1 Winterview Lane. And water shutoff at property owner's request at 38 Harold Avenue and at 8 Homeland Avenue. In terms of meters, read commercial meters, read the village residential meters. 13 final water meter readings were completed. 1 residential water meter was replaced. 1 meter transmitter was replaced, and 3 water meter inspections were completed. Staff development, Rich Smith, Anthony Galliano, and Connor Watts attended continuing education training through the Hudson Valley Waterworks Conference. Sincerely, Michael P. Traynor, Senior Water Superintendent. Oh, thank you. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Just turning over the fleet. Upon the recommendation of Water Superintendent Traynor, I move to declare the 2011 Ford F-350 pickup truck with VIN number at 1FTR F3BT6BEC 77448 and the 2002 Chevrolet 3500 service truck, VIN number 1GBJK34123E366279 surplus, and authorize the village clerk to advertise it for sale, or both for sale. Do I have a second?
Second.
And is there any discussion? We're all set on these vehicles. Okay. Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Michael, anything to add, or?
Not at this time.
Okay. All right, moving on to New Windsor and Cornwall EMS, Deputy Mayor Kane.
Okay, some highlights. I'm not going to read off everything, but some highlights from the chief. The FTO program has been implemented. Former class in the spring. It was taught by national EMS educators, and they're seeking Orange County to assist with funding of the class, which is about $13,000. A staff development and retention plan has been developed. With respect to operations, there were 62 responses in the town of Cornwall and 13 in the village of Cornwall. This is for August 2022. Let's see, the average response time in Cornwall was 8 minutes 40 seconds, and this will decrease now that the unit is in Cornwall. The New Windsor units have responded to 4 second calls in Cornwall, while Cornwall unit has responded 8 times to third calls in New Windsor. No calls for service went uncovered in New Windsor nor Cornwall. A new all-wheel drive ambulance should be delivered in the fall. And the Cornwall station is almost completed. Crews are reporting out of Cornwall now. And as an aside, as I said last week, the mayor and myself, along with the superintendent, Supervisor Wojciechowski, and
Deputy Supervisor.
Deputy Supervisor Wynn Gold, took a tour of the place with Chief Mike Biggs, and a couple of the personnel, and the place looks in great condition. There's some minor things that need to be done, but it's come a long way, and at this point, it might even be done, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 items. So looked very good. And that is about it.
I think what really stands out in that is that the line, there have been 2,375 calls this year between New Windsor, Cornwall, and Hudson, with 0 missed calls. And that's just the standard we have to expect from our emergency services personnel. And I thought I was really happy. I know there were a bunch of the trustees and folks in this room that were involved or walked through Fall Fest, and just to see the Cornwall EMS folks out there, and to see that there were a number of them that were former members of COVAC that are now members of Cornwall EMS. Really proud to see that. Another thing is that we're in the process of having our Cornwall member placed onto the New Windsor EMS board. So I'm not going to break the news right now on who that is. I'll wait and let that come out in an official statement. But the board there has voted to approve the person that is a Cornwall resident who will be a member of the board, so that Cornwall will have some oversight person on that New Windsor board. So looking forward to that. All right. And Chief Big's not here. He's going to try to be at some of these coming up in the future. But moving forward on resolutions, I always think it's funny, when I was a kid, and I'm not that old, I remember in Georgia when minimum wage went from $2.75 to $3.03 an hour, and I thought I had died and gone to heaven. And then how the numbers obviously increase across the years. So this is going to be the standard mileage rate increase for the remainder of 2022 for village employees, correct, Gene? So being back in the federal government since 1983, I remember when it went from 17 cents to around 21 cents per mile. Well, I'm going to introduce the following resolution and move for its adoption. We're going to raise this from 58 and a half cents per mile to 62 and a half cents per mile. And obviously, this is not a number that we pulled out of the air, an abstraction. This is what we are advised by the state or the county on that.
The-
I think it's
It's the
federal.
IRS.
So it's the feds,
Yeah.
okay. All right, so whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Cornwall and Hudson is determined to pay a fixed rate for mileage as reimbursement to officers and employees of the village who use their personal automobiles while performing their official duties on behalf of the village. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees shall approve reimbursement to such officers and employees at the same rate as authorized by the Internal Revenue Service, which has been increased from 0.585 cents to 0.625, or 58 and a half cents to 62 and a half cents per mile for the remainder of 2022. And Gina's just shared this with me. So this came out officially from the IRS, dated June 9th of 2022. This resolution will take effect immediately. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion regarding this mileage increase? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, next one. The creation of an exploratory water system committee. I know that this thing had sparked a little bit of interest on social media and elsewhere, and I want to kind of just give a quick paragraph essentially on what the planning and the thinking was behind this. And it essentially was to bring together a group of people who are unpaid, these are volunteers, and the composition of that body would be chosen and selected by this village board. We have some ideas on what that will look, and we wanted to invite the town to be a part of that. We all understand that the village is 25% of the combined greater Cornwall area regarding population. So they have, somewhere in, 10 to 12,000 people. We have 3,000, so we're 25% of the population, and we are not eligible for a number of grants because our median income is obviously a little bit higher in the village. We don't have as dense a demographic. We don't have as many people, and it makes us not eligible for a lot of assistance or a lot of grants that we could be getting from the state or from the feds. So we wanted to do this also as a means to explore whether or not it makes sense for town residents to pay more for water and for the village to continue to have to pay property taxes on properties where we're managing filtration plants in the town, but providing water to the village and town. That's it. There was nothing nefarious, and there's been fear-mongering going on out there. It's nothing to concern ourselves with in this regard. And we talked about at the board whether or not this would be an advisory committee or an exploratory committee. We looked at some of the words and what they mean. Sometimes advisory committees can go on in perpetuity. This is going to be for the short term. We're looking at maybe 3 to 4, up to 6 to 8, depending upon how many times they would meet and what they would come up with. If we don't do anything different, no harm, no foul. And if something comes up that the Water Exploratory Committee comes up with, we'll explore that and see if it's worth pursuing. I thought it was interesting today as I was researching what took place in November of 1940 so that I could draft up a proclamation for the inimitable Ken Cashman. And I thought this was really interesting as I asked the village clerk about the composition of the board back in 1940, and we had a conversation. There was a newspaper article titled, "Water System Viewed by Citizens Water Committee." Water system in the village viewed by the Citizens Water Committee. The Citizens Water Committee, which made recommendations for improvements to the Village of Cornwall water system and personnel, which were carried out by the Board of Trustees, made an inspection of the new distributing reservoir, new pipelines, and improvements at the storage basins. Then they list all the members of the committee, and accompanying the group were Mayor Irving C. Kent, yes, that same Mayor Kent, trustees Edwin N. Gherkin, Henry B. Riley, Delbert C. Lawrence, and Benjamin Santoro. Also were in attendance was Harold Wood, the Superintendent of Public Works, George Crom, and Clarence Mosher. Why did I read that? Just to say that this is nothing new, just to look at it, and if it makes sense to do things, keep doing them the way they are. We should do it that way, we'll do it. But to think that this water system we have, with a number of the pipes and the fittings being put in place in 1895, that's why the Village Hall was under a boil water advisory for 3 days because of a water main break on Hudson Street. So was the funeral home, and they had a funeral. So was Butter Hill Day School, where young children are being dropped off, and Helen Bunton wasn't able to do business that day. So it's not the fault of our water personnel, it's not the fault of anyone, but if we're not looking at what we can do to improve that infrastructure that is 19th century technology, I just don't think we're doing the right thing. So what does this entail? The board is going to vote on a resolution to create this exploratory water system committee, and then we are going to we've directed our attorney for the village to send a letter to the attorney for the town, inviting the town council to be a part of this. When it gets down to the composition, then we'll figure out what members of each board will be on it, what members of consumers, meaning people that are not necessarily hydrologists or people that understand the water system, but that are the end state users, the consumers, maybe from the town and from the village as well. This exploratory committee will be chaired and overseen by the current water superintendent. So that just explains what the purpose is. And now I'll read the resolution that was prepared by our attorney as soon as our attorney interjects something. Joe?
As you were speaking, I thought of a question. I did receive a voicemail message today from Steve Gaba, the town's attorney, asking for a copy of the resolution because my understanding is they have a meeting tomorrow night.
Yes, sir.
And I do have a draft letter to the town board with a copy to Mr. Gaba prepared based upon the discussion we had in attorney-client session. I'll make some minor edits to that and circulate it early tomorrow. So if the board can, wait, I assume, Mr. Mayor, if you make the call on that, that'll be fine.
Okay.
So the question that I just thought of is the draft letter to the town essentially explains the creation. I'll send a copy of the resolution that I expect the board to adopt now. And it says essentially we welcome the town board's input. Should I request that the town board make recommendations to the village board as to who to select, or are we just opening this up? Or do we know? Or do we know?
So I think when we had very preliminary discussions, the water superintendent, the town supervisor, and myself, very preliminary discussions on this. I think we had framed this out thinking that if we were to do this, we'd certainly want the water superintendent to be the person in charge, or the chair. We thought it would be appropriate for one member of each elected body, so it'd be one member from this board and one member from the town council. And then we thought it made sense just to have two people that are end-state users, people that are, receiving tap water in the town, and someone that was receiving tap water in the village. So that's kind of how we framed it out and talked about it. So I think that's the way the supervisor, if we pass this resolution, we send that letter over. I think that was the understanding, unless nobody on this board had any problems.
You
But
can amend it to have them recommend.
Well,
What I'm
that's
saying, recommend
just
is-
the issue, that's just the question. Are we requesting that the town board recommend individuals, or are we just
I think so,
opening this up?
since we are the elected, the duly elected body that is kind of overseeing this, yeah, I think we could say to them, our plan is to appoint one member of the village board, not me, one member of the village board, and it makes sense for them to appoint someone from the council, and then we're gonna appoint somebody from, Cornwall and Hudson writ large, and they can do the same from the town. So we could just,
And with respect, I'll call them the two members at large, so to speak.
perfect, yeah.
Again, so my specific question is, in the letter, am I asking the town board to recommend people, or are we just going to open this up to whoever wants to apply?
Well, I think the composition, we've kind of
No,
settled.
what he's getting at is, do you want the town to come back to us and say, we recommend
These
citizen
2 or 3 or 4
G-
people.
Yeah, of course. I mean, because the quicker that we do this, obviously, we don't want to drag this on into, the winter. We'd like to put this together. And then again, it's a volunteer committee. They're not being paid. They're not gonna be able to vote and change people's water rates or do anything like that. They'll spend a couple of meetings and see if it's worth further exploration as to whether anything needs to be changed. I mean, it's something that moving forward, when it comes to, and again, it gets back to the infrastructure piece as well. We have 5 dams, and those dams, and I'm looking back at the water superintendent, are gonna be required to be repaired. It's not gonna be a $10,000, $20,000 patch. We're talking millions of dollars. The town pool is another issue, and the town is looking at what they're gonna do in that. The town pays for water from us that is leaking out of the pool that the town is currently working to fix. We just thought it made sense that the town and the village, as we do in a lot of things now, work closer together when it came to the water delivery system. That's all. So Joe, I agree. If you're comfortable and the trustees are comfortable with the verbiage, yes. Bill?
Well, it appears that I, without putting words in your mouth, I think we haven't really put parameters around how the selection process of those 2 at-large members will happen. So the town one, I guess we're gonna solicit recommendations from the town board, and then on our front, how are we going to do that?
I imagine that we'd probably do something like we'd probably publicize it, putting something on the village website, putting something on the village Facebook page. We could probably put something into the Cornwall Local in regards to this. We could accept quote-unquote applications, which would just be somebody giving us their name and their address and then saying they're interested in it. Then we could talk about it, just like we did the selection for the Donahue Farm Committee, and just pick somebody.
So I will invite the town board to make a recommendation, if they so choose, to that member at large.
Okay.
And I can do this when we're in discussion about the resolution, or I can just raise these points
Go ahead.
now.
Go ahead.
In a work session last week, I believe it was, we had talked about ensuring that the committee, the appointed committee, is empowered and required to speak with experts as to water system governance, and they won't be hydrologists, but in addition to Mr. Trainer, other experts in water management and system management and governance thereof, and then also the master plan, the water master plan that is underway. That's the infrastructure review. This will be a key input into this committee's work as well, I would imagine. They have to integrate, and they will. Right.
Absolutely. Good point.
Good. Okay, those were my additions or comments.
Okay. What else, Joe? Anything else
No,
you go with that? All
I'm
right,
good,
you-
I'm good.
You guys all right with me making the resolution or proposing it? Okay, so I'm going to introduce this resolution, and I'm going to move that it be adopted. Whereas the village board, through its water department, provides water service to both village and town residents, and whereas the village board is committed to providing quality water service to village and town residents, and whereas the village board wishes to create an exploratory water committee to review and explore means to facilitate water projects between the village and the town, to apply for and receive funding for various water projects in both the village and the town from New York State, and to otherwise improve water services, and to report to the village board from time to time concerning its progress and recommendations. Now therefore be it hereby resolved that the village board hereby creates an exploratory water system committee to be comprised of both village and town residents for the purposes set forth above. I'm going to move that this resolution be passed. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, moving on. Donahue Barn Roof Replacement Project. Bid opening was on September 15th. I'd like to report that the bid opening was held on that date for replacement of the Donahue Barn roof. Remember, there are 4 buildings down on the farm property, the Donahue farm property that the village is now the owner of, just under 50 acres there. The largest one is the barn, as we refer to it, because that's what it once was. We received 1 bid from TAM Enterprises, TAM Enterprises, and that bid is currently under review by the Donahue Farm Steering Committee. Bill, anything else to add to that?
Just to, I'm looking for a nod from the chairman of that committee that they do have the bid in hand. They do.
Excellent.
Yes.
All right. Moving forward, sticking to that theme, the Donahue Farm Community Garden Proposal approvals. So, based on public surveys, there appears to be significant public support for a community garden. The Donahue Farm Steering Committee has submitted a proposal to the board for its consideration. The proposal indicates that development and operation of a community garden will be done primarily through volunteer labor from the community. However, support may be requested from various village departments for such activities as waterline trenching, etc. Garden governance and structure will be consistent with final recommendations made by the committee, that's the Donahue Farm Committee, later this year. This proposal has been expedited due to the seasonal nature of the required preparation activities and the desire for community use of the farm in the 2023 planting year. With this in mind, I'd like to make a motion to approve the following requests from the Donahue Farm Steering Committee. First, to establish a, quote, community garden, close quote, at Donahue Farm with a footprint not to exceed 60 feet by 300 feet on the southeastern border of the property. It's noted that the community garden will be overseen by the Donahue Farm Committee. Final governance and structure be determined in consultation with the village board at a future date. In addition, logistical/operational questions and/or support will be coordinated with the appropriate village department. In other words, DPW or the water department, etc. Number 2, to authorize the Donahue Farm Committee to enter into an agreement with Community Foundation of Orange and Sullivan, hereafter referred to as CFOS, to act as fiscal sponsor for fundraising and fee collection for improvements, in other words, barn renovations, and/or operations of approved property uses, in other words, community garden. Final agreement is subject to village council, the attorney for the village, approval. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Bill, any color to add to this?
Just to specify that where it says barn renovations as an improvement, that refers to additional barn renovations. We're intending to do stabilization as part of the initial allocation of funds that were involved with the purchase. But then future, the multiple purposes for the fund that would be signed.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
What else from me?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. I'd like to further add that the committee, the Donahue Farm Committee, requests the board to allocate $6,000 to be deposited in a community foundation of Orange and Sullivan, again, hereafter referred to as CFOS, account for Donahue Farm. The breakdown of the funding request is $1,000 for the initial CFOS minimum balance and $5,000 for the community garden startup, which includes $3,000 in fencing and $2,000 in water well equipment. The request assumes electrical service is returned to the property as part of stabilization activities, as is the current plan. Provisions will be made to operate the well pumping system off of a portable generator in the event this is delayed. So, I'd like to make a motion approving a transfer of $6,000 from the general fund contingency expense line Alpha 1990.4 to General Fund Parks Maintenance, the fund line Alpha 7140.4, and further authorizing allocation of $6,000 to the CFOS account for Donahue Farm from General Fund Parks and Maintenance line Alpha 7140.4. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion, any color to add to that bill?
Question for the village treasurer and anyone else who knows. I'd like to make sure that we have a requirement that the Donahue Farm Committee, in making any expenditures from, authorizing CFOS to make any expenditures with regard to the community garden, that there's a report delivered to the village board monthly, as to any spending or anything like that. Can that be an amendment to this particular allocation resolution, or?
I would think that's got to be part of your agreement with CFOS, that there's some sort of accounting for their spending.
Oh, they certainly account to the committee. I just want to make sure that the village board is apprised, that we require the committee to apprise the village board of any spending that's.
I would think that'd be
undertaken.
part of your monthly report to us, though, no? I mean, from,
As long as I'm made aware of what they're doing, I will put it as part of my treasurer's report to you.
I would like to make sure that happens. That is not your part. I want to make sure.
got it.
Is your understanding, Trustee Brain, is we get monthly statements from the community foundation,
The
or?
Donahue Farm Committee that is, sort of authorizing those expenses will be getting the direct line of communication to CFOS. They'll be the ones, approving the withdrawal of or the payout of funds from the foundation account. I just want to make sure that the Donahue Farm Committee reports it appropriately. I just want that in writing. I know they will.
So maybe the,
I want to make sure that line of communication is sort of recorded.
Okay.
Does that?
and maybe actually the village board should probably be supplied with the monthly, the treasurer should be supplied with the community foundation statements, monthly statements.
Oh, I don't have an account with him now, so I've never done business with him.
The events committee has an account.
Yeah, have we ever done that from the village board, any other subcommittee?
Does the events have,
Dave?
But I was gonna say, why don't, I definitely get what we're trying to do here, why don't we do this subject to, the committee will work with Gene to work out a mutually a mutually agreeable approach to this. We get what we're trying to do. I think we can get trapped up in means and methods here.
Yeah.
If we don't, we'll get statements from CFOS, we'll make sure the village is appropriately apprised.
Fair enough.
Certainly satisfies me.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? Okay, then.
If I could just add,
Oh.
I did the transfer request this way because we did not budget for that expense out of our parks line this year, and looking at it today, it's, we've pretty much spent everything that we've budgeted for the year, so rather than let that line go over, I'm asking the board to authorize me to put some contingency money in there to cover the expense to start them up. That's why it's written this way.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, that makes sense. All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, moving on to other business, and we're still on the Donahue Farm Steering Committee. So, William, can you give us a quick dump? And I know we've covered a lot of the big things, and basically put the date of the next meeting out there.
I am pleased to announce that the village board has approved the expenditure of funds for the ground prep for the community garden seconds ago. I'm not sure that this has been formally stated at one of our meetings, but the committee voted to appoint Dave Work as chair. And
Congratulations, condolences.
and
By the way, the chair doesn't last very long. This is like Game of Thrones, so. Yeah.
To that end, the official size of the committee has been reduced to 7. 7, correct? Yes. And Mr. Poindexter is the secretary. And in addition, was there anything else material from the last meeting? Bless you.
Bless you.
Not to my knowledge. There will be, this may come up, this will come up under FYI, that there's going to be some events taking place in October. Just one note about this funding request: it assumes that electrical service will be returned to the farm, at least for the purposes of running the well. But if not, they will make temporary use of a generator for the purpose of establishing the ground there, and then water service to be, considered going.
So when you say electrical is returned, we obviously know there's 4 structures there. One of them has electric, the other 3 do not. So we're trying to get established at the barn, at the kennel, and at the ice house, carriage house.
Well, potentially, eventually for those buildings, but for the purposes of the garden, there's no water service to the property. There's a well that's drilled, so they want to use the existing well, but have to run a pump to.
And the old garden, Dave, the old garden there, when Deke had it, wasn't there an electrical hookup? Didn't he run electric out there? That's what's got to be.
The actual main barn structure has, I'll say, a fairly modern electrical system in the barn. It's just not connected. It's actually wired and plumbed for the well, so.
Got it.
It's fairly straightforward. There are obviously security issues associated with that area, so Bill, the sooner we can bring electrical service there, the better for a whole lot of reasons.
100%.
Is it overhead electric?
It is overhead electric currently coming in across. It stops on a pole on the ice house there, so we may need to think about how we reconfigure that.
And I believe the committee will convene again on the 27th of September at 6:30 p.m. here in this room.
Excellent. All right. All right, thank you for that. Moving on to 2022 fee schedule and forms with the building department. I'm going to let Deputy Mayor Kane, I know he's been working with the village attorney and with our building inspector on that issue.
Manny, I'm just waiting on, I know we had communicated. I just need to, at this point, I just need to see, and the rest of the board just needs to see your fee schedule with the town included. We have spoken about this. Okay, if you can email that to.
I did,
When did you email?
on September 8th, but I can give you a copy, I have them right here.
I looked, I didn't find it, that's my fault then, okay. Did you email to the entire board? Because I know we spoke around then, and you said you were gonna have it for me, and that's why I was surprised,
Yeah.
okay.
I send it to you and the attorney, Mr.
Okay,
McKay.
all right.
But I'll
So-
send it again,
No, no,
Yeah,
If-
do you mind, I didn't see the.
I'll send it
am I
again.
trying to- Okay.
okay, then send it to us, that way we'll get this done. The biggest thing, you know what, Manny, send it to the entire board.
Okay,
Because they need to look at it. I thought it was fine, but Dave brought up the good point last time. Let's compare it to what the town has.
Yeah, I'm
That makes sense.
just glancing here, and I see that I do have it, but in the version that I've got, it's addressed to me and to the attorney.
oh,
So I think you might have.
maybe, okay.
So
So they go to you.
Forwarded to September 8th.
Okay, all right.
Okay, that explains it.
Maybe without drilling down to the micro, just the big picture, are there a lot of differences between town fees and ours?
Yes, and they just changed their fees not too long ago.
Okay, are there explanations for why? Can you look at that and say the town charges more for this because of this, or the village charges more for this because of this? Or is there a lot of ones that don't make sense and they don't line up?
Yeah, they don't make sense to me, they don't.
Okay, all right, all right. All right, that's what we need to know. All right, okay, so you guys are on that. All right, temporary storage containers on private property.
That is something that the attorney for the village and I have struggled with, only because he's been inundated with other matters. So we will regroup and look at this, but he really has just been, has other stuff, so this has been pushed aside a bit for some time.
The attorney for the village and the DPW superintendent are on the same boat. They start to get to work on something and then I pull them off for something else. So I get it, which brings me into my next one. which is the Cornwall Yacht Club Shore Road easement. So I believe it was last month where I discussed an ongoing issue that we have with the Cornwall Yacht Club in regards to Shore Road that runs, the piece that runs from our boat dock or our boat slip where Dock Hill Road empties out to, and then travels south towards West Point along adjacent to the Hudson River. So there'd been some confusion as to whether or not the yacht club could lease the road so that they could have their members park there and nobody else. The yacht club put a sign there. Now, I asked the yacht club months ago for a copy of this executed lease agreement because that's what I was told they had. They told me that the board of directors and the members did not want to give it to me. So I understood that. The sign is up down there. I've explained to them that they cannot tow any cars, despite the language on it, which says if you park here, you're subject to being towed. And in the interim, came back to the village board, explained the situation, and went to the attorney for the village. So the attorney for the village has reached out to the yacht club's attorney, and Joe, I will turn it over to you to explain what you found out about the executed lease agreement that the yacht club Commodore had explained to me that they had, telling them that they were on the right-of-way owned by CSX and had entered into an agreement and had already paid CSX for the right to own that right-of-way or use that right-of-way.
Something like that.
What?
It's kind of an attorney-client session, but in broad strokes, I've communicated with the attorney for the yacht club. I was advised that they had an agreement, I believe the attorney used the term easement, between CSX and the yacht club that was negotiated. It was with CSX for review and execution. So what was represented to me was that there was no executed agreement at this time, but the attorney would send it to me when he had it.
So where we are right now, and the board is directing you to continue to pursue the title search. We're going to look at surveys. We're going to do due diligence into digging into how this overlaps, because if it's a village road that we have plowed for decades, and a village road that we have repaired potholes on for decades, that we have repaved for decades, and as recently as within the last 10 years, put up a brand-new guardrail down there, then it's our road. And if it's not our road, then we won't be doing any of those things. We won't be plowing it for snow in the winter. We won't be replacing, repairing, paving, or any of those things. So that's why this is important for the village at this juncture to know what the answer is, because no one seems to know.
Yeah, and again, kind of broad strokes for public consumption. We have retained a surveyor for the village and communicated with him. We are attempting, there have been some vacations and scheduling issues, but we are attempting a meeting. And one thing I might suggest to the surveyor and to the board is that when we do want to have this meeting, and it's been a little delayed, so I may suggest that we actually have a site visit with myself, the surveyor, I assume Dave, and if anybody else wants to be present. And actually, David Decker from my office is working with me on this issue, and I normally don't send two attorneys out to a site visit, but it may be, in this particular case, I would suggest to the board that it would be helpful. So the title search has been ongoing. That's been ordered for a number of weeks. As the deputy mayor indicated earlier tonight, the title companies are swamped and they are behind. So I'm hopeful to get that very soon. Still trying to set up this meeting or site visit. That's the general status right now, and I have provided the board with some at least preliminary case law. And my question at this point is, how is this not a village road? And I would like to know why it's not.
We don't have to get into it right now.
Right.
But I'm not going to get into it right now.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Just so that everybody understands too, just, nobody on this village board is a member of the yacht club. Not that that matters. The reason why this came on the board's radar is because people come into the mayor's office and complain about the fact that they have not been allowed to park along that road. Now, for years, we've allowed people to park on that road. There are 78 parking places, 3 handicap spaces, and 8 boat trailer spaces available at our waterfront. Everybody understands that going from 2019 into the pandemic, people found out about the waterfront, and we have so much more volume now. I can give you the numbers, the increase in permits that people come and pick up here at Village Hall. It's a daily onslaught of people coming in. A day doesn't go by where one of the ladies at the front desk is not selling a permit.
Mr. Mayor,
Sir,
can we discuss that issue in attorney-client session?
which issue?
Where I think you're going with that.
No, I'm not gonna discuss it, I'm not gonna discuss it here. I think I know what I think you think I'm going to. I think that I know what you think, but no, I'm not gonna go there. Yeah, I'm not going there. What I'm saying is, we are looking at this from the perspective that we have people coming in to complain to us that they have parked when the parking lot was full, and in some instances where people did not want to pay for a parking permit and parked along that road. They can no longer do it now because there is a tow-away zone sign there. So that's why this came onto my radar. I could care less. I don't park down there. I walk from Wood Avenue. That's how it came onto my radar, and then trying to do due diligence and getting the details of it, that got us to here. Is that good? See, I knew exactly what you're talking about, but I wasn't going there.
I'm glad you thought what I
Yes,
thought you thought
exactly.
you were going to say.
On the advice of council, I'll leave it there.
And just while Manny's here, Manny, I'm going to give you a call on this as well.
Mhm.
I'd like your input on some of this.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else in the rest of the village board, any weigh in on it? I mean, we talked about this obviously before. Anything else? Anything I missed? All right. Moving on. Memorial donation request. The board is now back in the business of taking requests for donations. Dave, it's something we do want to get on the agenda for you guys, because one of the things, which is the donation of trees, I mean, and I know right now you're going to say we can't do anything until we establish the policy, but that's one thing where, you know, I'd like to be able down the road to be able to say to people, you want to donate a particular non-invasive, indigenous, you know, native to the Northeast tree, and your committee approves it, we're happy to send you there. We're just trying to figure out how best to lay that out in concert with our comprehensive plan, which, as you know, is very vague as far as it doesn't tell you exactly where to plant trees and how to. It just says you need to focus on refoliation efforts. So that's one thing the board looked at. The other is the memorial benches. I think the board just approved one of them. We have 2 in the queue, I believe. There might be 3, and I've heard there might be a 4th coming. We're trying to avoid placing them down at the waterfront for obvious reasons, to disrupt the vista. There's only so many things you can put down there. One of the things we're doing in locating places, the board has approved a place at the bandstand along the sidewalk next to the big fir tree, the big Christmas tree, to put one there because we see a lot of people putting up lawn chairs for the concerts, and that will be a place. And then we just out front, the question's gonna become what's going on out front out here. So the garden club had come to me and said they wanted to get more involved in doing stuff around the village. They do a lovely job at the bandstand and some other places. But one of the things we wanted to do was, last year we focused on spending money, time, and effort, man hours, on fixing the front of Village Hall. Now we want to tackle the island next to it. So where that island is, there was a pad put together. I want to thank the DPW guys, where a bench that's going to be donated to the village is going to be bolted. People say, yes, but back in the day, we didn't want benches around the village because then teenagers tend to congregate there. If they want to congregate there with the police department right here, probably the best place for them to congregate. And there's not really, other than that, there's a few houses right here. But anyway, we're going to put a bench there. We have a flower bed there that the garden club is a meeting this week and is going to try to figure out what best to do there for seasonal plantings, whether it's mums in the fall, annuals in the spring. We're going to put a tree in on the corner there, and we're gonna put a poop mitt dispenser system for dog walkers, because we've noticed, well, I've noticed, walking dogs, that we have one at the bandstand, and then the next one is the two that are all the way down by Town Hall, that there's nothing in between, and this would be a good place for it. So that's the plan. We're gonna clean that up. We had to raise the curbing around there, because we have to build the soil up a little bit to put sod down there. We're gonna sod it, and then Mr. Rendazzo is doing what he's done before and donating some of his workers and time to put the sprinkler system in there so that we can water it by turning it on in the morning for 30 minutes and then turning it off, and that's what kept it green out front during the fall. So that's where the bench is gonna go, and then the board has approved the one that's over by the bandstand, and then from there, it'll be on a case-by-case basis. We're not gonna turn them down, but we do have to find places around the village to put them, and it's not as easy as you think. People go, oh, there's plenty of places for them. Go talk to a business owner and say, I want to put a bench in front of your shop. Not all of them think that that's a great idea. So we're gonna work around that. Dave and I are kind of talking to people, finding places that we think people would be amenable to it, and then we'll bring it back to the board and vote on it. That's the memorial donation request status update. Downtown Revitalization Initiative in New York Forward grant application. As everybody knows, the village board approved a $5,000 payment, which was one half of a $10,000 payment that we went into with the town to hire a consulting firm to help us with a grant program that Governor Kathy Hochul has approved, and obviously the legislature had to approve it, a $100 million downtown revitalization initiative that is, and I've heard again, the fear-mongering and scaremongering about, we're not gonna be eligible for, it's this community wouldn't be eligible for it. It is built and designed for communities like ours, where you have a city and a town, or a town and a village that are contiguous to each other and work together to try to make your downtown central business district and all of your arts and cultural stuff, your artwork, your green spaces, to make them interconnected. And the exact verbiage is amenities and services related to creating a more walkable downtown area. So it's one of the things that Supervisor and I are working closely on, is trying to get these sidewalks done, because we're walkable. And then to look into running a sidewalk all the way down Dock Hill Road, so that you can walk the entire stretch from the town of Cornwall, out toward 32, and then all the way down to the waterfront. The town has a bunch of projects, and Dave, I'll tell you this, one of the things is we were working on the application this morning with the grant writers is the Donahue Farm property. We run into, how are we gonna pay for this? And the village can't just write, this is a perfect thing of having ideas where you come up and say, we wanna refurbish the barn because the committee's making a recommendation. This would be a great community gathering place for weddings or for meetings or for Boy Scouts or for this or that. This is the stuff that we would be eligible for. It's $4.25 million in total. We would get one half of that. And as I said last Thursday night, we had a workshop, which I want to really give a great shout out to Steve Jones, the head of the EDAC, the Economic Development Advisory Council. Committee. I always get that wrong one way or the other. As well as Jason Burnham, who's just a Cornwall guy who came back and kind of does these projects like this and has donated his time. They put out a polling instrument similar to what the Donahue Farm Committee did. 12,000 total residents. They got back around 270 of them. And as a fledgling PhD candidate, I will tell you regarding sample sets, that is pretty damn good. Is it 2,000 or 10,000? Is it everybody? Or is it, no. But it's a decent sample set. And then they also had a table at Fall Fest where people stopped by and prioritized what they thought was important if we do get the money. What are our chances? That was my first question to the grant writers. These grant writers have gotten multi-million-dollar bids approved from New York State for Kingston and Peekskill. And when I said to them, so they have a body of work, what are our chances? And I was waiting for, 90% we're gonna get it. 30 to 50%. And going into this and spending $5,000 on our end to potentially win $2.25 million, I think it's money well spent. And the board last year approved $20,000 for grant writing. So this is our first foray into it. We'll see how it goes. The initial submission has to be in September 23rd. That's why we were hustling to work on it. and get it ready in the next 2 or 3 days. I will have a copy for the board of what the grant writer gets back to me to review so that you guys can see it. And then the process starts, and hopefully we'll know something by the first of the year, one way or the other. All right?
I would just add one thing is
Yeah.
that I've heard expressed some concern about what if we don't get it.
Yeah.
The worst case scenario is that we have an incredible body of community survey work that prioritizes the kind of improvements that people want to see. We will have a deliverable from this regardless of whether we get the grant or not, that is definitely would cost $5,000 to receive. So I think it's money well spent, doubly so.
And I think the lesson learned for me in this, not having written grants before, the lesson learned for me was there was a grant that in Mayor Coyne's administration was submitted to New York State. And then the next year we redid it. We added more to it. Obviously, we had more time. Obviously, we'd already gotten a score. We know what got weighted this way and that way. We put it in the next year, and we were surprised that we did not get a higher score, even though we added this appendix and this addendum and added this and got additional this and additional that. Every year, the priorities change. So it's weighted a certain way one year. You submit the same packet in next year. If the priorities are weighted differently, you'll get a higher score or lower score. So working with grant writers and teams like this, like, look, Ronna Liebert is one of the best, but she obviously has a career and a life and a family and was doing it on donated time. You're gonna have to pay for it. So the board put money aside for that. The town is gonna do that in this next budget, and then we'll see how this goes, and then next year we'll attack it differently. Does it make sense to hire somebody on an hourly basis and have them just every day look at what's coming out and then saying, hey, let's target this, let's target that? But on this first one, we'll put everything we have into it, and as Bill said, it does leave us with a lot of deliverables, and it also is a great lesson for us going forward as we move on to the next one, if there is a next one. Okay, moving on next is the refoliation project. So I really want to commend and thank Barbara Smith-Joya. Barbara has an affinity for trees like I do and like many people in this room do. And we just want to try something different this year. I know that she had gotten with Dave Work, and the idea, which was a spectacular idea, was that we would have residents agree to buy trees, and then we would put together a team of volunteers on a particular day in October during the fall planting season. We would get some assistance. We had some local landscapers, Foley, Randazzo, our DPW guys, that we were gonna have assist, because if a resident was gonna have a tree put in the village right-of-way, the village owns a certain piece or has a right-of-way on people's property, to do that, you have to do markouts, and it's not as simple as just putting a spade in the ground. It's gonna be an involved process. We've looked at it, Dave, and I know you've talked to Barbara about this, and we're going to table it till next year. And the reason being is, great idea. The deeper we got into it, the more involved it got in how we were going to make the selections, and just a lot of other things. You put a tree in on somebody's property, and now if it's in the village right away, we're responsible for it. And so what happens is, people use the tree, and if you go there to trim it so that our garbage collectors don't get knocked off the back of the truck, sometimes people lose their mind about that. However, if that tree falls in their car, they want the village to come right over right away and pick it up because it's the village's tree. So all these things factor into it. Who's going to water it, all those kind of things. So we want to kind of do a good job, we think, going into this next spring season. Even though we're not going to do it in the spring, we're going to look to do it next fall, but just to kind of get some feedback from people, get some ideas from people, and then start modestly, kind of what Barbara Gazda did with the daffodil planting and the bulbs. Well, she put out, 7,000 of them, but that was modest. But start modestly in the first year. So what are we going to do? We still have a little bit left in our tree budget. I walked the Hudson Street today with the DPW superintendent, pointed out the trees that did not make it through the drought and some trees that have been dead for a while. And we're working with the homeowners on Hudson Street, the property owners, to remove those. We also have plans to get all the stumps on Hudson Street from trees that fell down or we had to take down, get those ground out this year and patched up. So you're going to start seeing improvements to Hudson Street, and I told Dave that we would come up with a modest number in the 5 to 7, find places along Hudson Street to you were listening this morning. See, I always think you tune me out when we do our walk talks.
Did you think I was sleeping
So anyway, but the idea is to get Dave to get something in the ground, something native, something indigenous, something that's not under the power lines, and something that we're gonna take care of through the fall planting season. So we're gonna continue on with that. We do have robust plans for refoliation, but unfortunately, the community group we wanted to get together for this, it's just not gonna happen this fall, not at that scale. All right, I think lastly is just go down FYI, the Bandstand 2022 concert series, keep in mind, I think we have 3 left. Tomorrow night, I forget off the top of my head who is performing, but Eddie Hurley lets me know a month in advance on who's performing that next week. But there will be a concert tomorrow night. Starts at 6 now, because obviously it's getting darker sooner, 6 to 7:30, and then there's only 2 after that. If you get a chance, really stop and come by to that. They do a really, really nice job, and I can assure you, because I see the budget, these musicians are not getting paid a lot of money to do it. It's really a labor of love for them. Class of 2023 Car Wash is scheduled for September 24th. Which, from 12 to 4 p.m., is that Saturday or Sunday, Gene? 24th, today's the 19th?
Sunday.
Sunday, okay? Just so that you know, when school groups do this, obviously the village donates the water. They bring their own buckets and sponges, and they're required to use biodegradable soap so that they're not hurting anything, any of our plants.
Sorry,
and trees.
Saturday.
Okay. There is a wedding that I'll be officiating at Donnie Memorial Park on Saturday. That's September 24th. That's the Mullers. Cheryl Walker's having a 5K event in concert with Mount St. Mary's, which the board approved during that special session. It's going to be on October 9th. Christopher Columbus and Indigenous Peoples Day, the village offices will be closed, which is October 10th. That is a Monday. That is always a federal holiday. Movie night at Donahue Farm, October 15th. Mike, is that Ghostbusters?
Yes, Ghostbusters Afterlife. Also before that, we have a band concert, Chicken Head Rocks. It's a band out of Brooklyn.
Chicken Head Rocks? All right.
Yep. And I believe the Donahue Farm Committee might be doing a fundraising event in conjunction with all that.
That's confirmed.
Excellent. All right. I like all this.
Committee support.
I think the word is intersectionality. I like this. All right. So Mike, that is October 15th. Again, that's a Saturday.
Yes, Saturday. Rain date would be that Sunday, the 16th.
Understood. The village-wide yard sale, which Barbara Gazda always spearheads every year, is going to be October 15th, which is obviously a Saturday, which will be that day. And obviously, the village's fall bulk pickup is always the Monday after the Saturday of the village-wide yard sale. So, Dave, is that right? October 17th? Yes. Okay. And lastly, I think this was approved, and I want to thank...
No, it wasn't.
Oh, it was not?
Yeah, no, we approved the beer and wine,
Got
so
it.
the beer and wine application.
Okay,
for a
so
license for a
do
day.
we need a resolution for this? Okay, so let me give you a quick background. So, and I'm getting this all from my wife, who is on the Cornwall Youth Committee and was elected the president of this, or whatever they call it, the chairperson of it. So she wanted to make sure that I had all these details. The Cornwall Youth Committee is set up, I guess, to pick up the kids that are not in elementary school and they're not in high school, because that's a gap that they're trying to focus on. So it's a great group of people that are doing this. And I don't understand this, but then again, I have my boomer tendencies. They're doing this thing called a color run, which I've seen in Girls on the Run. We do this where I'm going to explain how this works. This is going to be Sunday, October 2nd. It's 1.5 miles. It is going to begin at the Little League field. It's going to travel down Main Street into the village, onto Hudson Street, down to 2 Alice's. It's going to make that hard left onto Academy, and then go down, make the left back onto Main Street, and follow that up to Town Hall. All right? While they're snaking their way through there are spectators along the route. Oh, Chief's already getting queasy. No, Dave's getting queasy on this, where they toss at the runners, let me get this straight, vegetable-based powdered colored packets. And they are comprised of cornstarch, baking soda, and food-safe dyes. That's more information than you need. Some of the runners will be wearing goggles and bandanas for this. So, anyhow, I am going to. This
Is that
begins-
biodegradable like the soap for the car wash, or?
So it is a 1.5 mile color run. There is a flyer that's all around town and around the village, which, Jace, I'll leave this to you if that helps you. It's got a QR code on here because everything we do now has a QR code. It's a 1.5 mile color run. Starts at 3:30 p.m. beginning at the Little League Drive, Academy Road, Main Street, Cornwall Town Hall. Chief, if you can just coordinate with Chief Hazard, just make sure we're covered on that. The color bash is from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., which I guess is going to end back at Town Hall. It's going to include food trucks, a DJ, dunk tanks, games, and more. Free parking at Munger Cottage with the overflow at the middle school. So that's their parking plan on it. So I'm going to make a motion for the board to approve that piece of the run that is going to be coming into and exiting out of the village, from the town into the village, back into the town on October 2nd. The entire event to take place between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m., but the only thing that actually is in our domain is the run portion till they get back to Town Hall. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Anybody
If I
want?
could just add, I've been in touch with Phyllis Murphy because it's the town recreation department that's actually spearheading this.
Got it.
And the committee is almost a subcommittee of that, so it's a town
Sponsored event.
town-sponsored event, not this Cornwall committee that you're referring to.
Yeah, it says, well, it says sponsored by Cornwall Youth Committee, but underneath that it says Cornwall Recreation Department.
Right.
Gotcha. All right. So, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Insurance issue.
Right. Okay, I'll move along to board comments or public comment first?
You said that, right?
Public comment first?
Yep.
We usually do public comment first.
Yeah, all right. All right, I'll go ahead and open this up to public comment. You can step up 3 minutes to the microphone right here to address the board. Please state your name and your residence. Yeah, go ahead.
You're doing it before the board comments.
Yes.
Brendan Coyne, 13 Paula Court. 2 items. One, with the survey regarding connectivity between the town and the village. I'd like the village to consider not necessarily doing concrete along Dock Hill Road. I'd like to see what other possibilities are there. Anyone who's been up and down that road knows that, it needs to be widened, needs to be leveled in areas. But I would suggest that we try not to do concrete there. One other thing. I just thought that at the Fall Festival yesterday, it was a good idea for the Water Department to be represented yesterday and take comments. And when I was there, I had asked Mike had he received any complaints. He hadn't. So kudos to Mike, Dan, and Doris for being at the Fall Festival. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak, address the board? Not hearing any, I'm going to move on to board comments, and I'm going to begin with trustee Brain.
I attended Fall Fest yesterday. It was fantastic. What was it? Spectacular. That's my usual. It was terrific. And one of the people I spoke to there was one of the former Kovac EMTs who had been one of the most outspoken people who were concerned about the potential for the consolidated New Windsor, Cornwall EMS. And he expressed pretty much unreserved appreciation for the new situation and talked about what an improvement it was for him personally, but also for the overall service. So I was glad to hear that. That is all that comes to mind. I'm glad it rained again today, and I would like to see a little more of that, please. And that's it from me. Thank you.
Trustee Carnwright.
Just condolences to the Johnson family. Those of you who knew Eddie Mack, I knew him most of my life, and he was a good guy, a really dedicated veteran who fought in Vietnam and was in even before Vietnam, and a great fireman and just a great guy. So condolences to the Johnson family.
Thank you, Dave. Deputy Mayor Kane.
Just a couple of things. One, I just want to thank the village residents who showed up for the September 11th ceremony. Despite the inclement weather, it held off for the most part, but I'd estimate there were at least 150 people there. So it was a nice showing of support that this community keeps involved in every year, and truly doesn't forget. Second, I just want to, I know people would say it's just doing their job, but I do have to give kudos to the DPW. You guys have been working hard out front here, getting the grounds and Hudson Street prep for the potential repaving of Hudson Street and 218. And the same thing with the water department. Mike, you guys are doing a great job jumping on these emergency situations that pop up, like the one that happened in front of DB Mart. So kudos to you guys. And the same thing with the fire, the police department did an excellent job at the 9/11 ceremony. So much appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank the village board. They were all at the 9/11 ceremony. I was in Atlanta and got back late. And actually, I want to thank the board especially Deputy Mayor Kane for running the work session. We had a lot of things to grind through, which made tonight shorter than trust me, it could have been. And I truly appreciate you guys doing that. And then I think everybody on this board and at this dais is a dog owner. But I want to highlight the fact that Trustee Brain and his family, his wife and daughter and son, adopted a small miniature pinscher from a rescue organization because of some hoarding that had gone on there, and saved a life. And as Bill and I talked about, when you rescue a dog from a shelter, you save two lives, the one that you take out of the shelter and another one that now has space. So thank you for that, Bill. Truly appreciate it. I mean, that's a good thing. Adopt, don't shop. So,
Yeah, there were 57 dogs in this house in Middletown, including some deceased ones. And while my daughter was walking the dog at the shelter, the hoarder himself showed up and tried to take the dog. So it was very much a rescue.
yeah.
Police were involved to make him leave, and my wife said, well, it was a cute dog, but as soon as that guy showed up, I was like, we're taking it. So we've got two now.
Excellent. All right, excellent. All right, anything else? Any alibis? No. Department heads, any alibis? All right, without further ado, I'm gonna make a motion to close the September 19th meeting of the village board.
Mess Gene up, it's not me.
You got me discombobulated. All in favor? Aye. All right, thanks, everybody. Keep in mind, until this is killed, these mics are live. Jason, I don't know if you want that.
She already had
I think they have it online.
While the mics are live, I would just like to repeat for anyone listening that the fundraiser is going to take place on October 15th at Donahue Farm. It should be a great time.
There you go.
We didn't do enough advertising.
It's a few weeks
pending.
away.
It's pending.
Yeah, it's a few weeks away. But I realized we had the pulpit. We should have
I know.
hit it harder.
How do you get a QR code for that?
There is one.